My sister sold my childhood home behind my backs, so I bought her dream house out from under her and left her begging. I'm a 33-year-old man. And the house I grew up in wasn't just a building, it was my entire childhood wrapped in brick and wood. My late father built it himself, every nail and beam a testament to his stubborn love for our family. I can still picture him on the front porch, hammer in hand, telling me, "A man's home is the only place the world can't take from him." That line stuck with me my entire life. After our parents passed away, the house became more than property, it became memory. The smell of Mom's cinnamon rolls still lingered in the walls. The old oak tree out front still had the rope swing Dad made for us. And even though the paint was chipping and the floors creaked with age, it was perfect in its imperfections. It was ours. My sister Lily and I inherited it together. She was always the golden child, charming, unpredictable, the one who could make our parents laugh even when she messed up. Me. I was the quiet one, the steady hand, the one who fixed her mistakes without anyone noticing. We were opposites in every way. But I thought we shared one sacred truth, that the house was untouchable. When I'd visit on weekends, I'd find her sitting on the porch scrolling through her phone, barely looking up when I arrived. I'd bring groceries, clean the gutters, and tend to the garden while she complained about how outdated everything looked. I brushed it off, told myself she was just venting, not realizing how different our attachments were. If I had paid attention to the subtle things, the way she avoided eye contact when I mentioned our father's legacy, or how she'd say, "We could do so much more with this place if we sold it," maybe I would have seen what was coming. But I didn't. Because back then, I still believed family was something that couldn't be sold. It started small, like a hairline crack in the wall, that you barely notice until it spreads across the whole house. Lily began bringing up the idea of selling. At first, it was casual. "You know, this place is old," she'd say, her voice light, but her eyes fixed on me. "We could sell it and split the money, maybe buy our own places." I'd laugh it off, thinking she was just being impulsive again. But she kept bringing it up. Every visit turned into a sales pitch. I tried to explain it to her, the only way I knew how. "Lily, this isn't just real estate. It's Dad's blood and Mom's laughter in these walls." But she'd roll her eyes, replying, "You're so sentimental. You know that? They're gone, and this house won't bring them back." That line hit me harder than I let on. I remember standing in the living room, the evening sun casting long shadows through the windows, and feeling this strange distance between us, like she was already gone too. I started noticing things, her friends showing up to take a look at the property, her subtle questions about market prices, her constant frustration when I refused to engage. One night, over dinner, she slammed her fork down and snapped, "You're just afraid of moving on. You're holding me back." Her voice echoed through the room, sharp and unfamiliar. I just sat there, staring at her, wondering how the same girl who once cried over a broken picture frame could now talk about selling our home like it was an inconvenience. That's when I realized it wasn't about closure. It was about money. The house wasn't a legacy to her anymore. It was a transaction waiting to happen. I went to bed that night uneasy, staring at the ceiling, trying to convince myself she'd calm down. But something told me this was only the beginning, and the foundation we stood on was about to crumble. A few weeks later, I came back from a short work trip, humming to myself as I turned the corner onto our old street. But when I saw it, my stomach dropped. A bold red and white for sale sign stood in the front yard of my childhood home. It's planted right where Dad used to sit and drink coffee every morning. For a second, I thought I was hallucinating. Then I saw Lily's car in the driveway and felt my pulse explode in my ears. I stormed inside. "What the hell is this, Lily?" I shouted. She didn't even look guilty, just annoyed. "Calm down," she said, waving her phone. "It's already done. The buyers made a great offer." "Done?" I repeated, frozen in disbelief. "You forged my signature?" Her silence said everything. She avoided my eyes, then muttered, "You were never going to agree. Someone had to do something." I couldn't breathe. My voice cracked as I tried to process the weight of her betrayal. "This isn't just a house. This was our home, Lily. Mom and Dad's legacy. She scoffed, crossing her arms. It's just a building, Mark. You act like living in it will bring them back. I'm trying to move forward and you're stuck in the past. I remember stepping outside, gripping the railing, my hands shaking so badly I could barely stand. The sound of the wind through the old oak tree suddenly felt hollow, like the house itself was grieving. The buyers had already closed the deal. The papers were signed, notarized, irreversible. That night, I sat in my car across the street, staring at the glowing windows of the home I no longer owned. The laughter of strangers drifted from inside. It was already theirs. And Lily, she didn't even look back as she drove off. I didn't know it then. But that betrayal would ignite something in me I didn't know I was capable of. The next few weeks were a blur of boxes, paperwork, and bitterness. I had nowhere to go. The house was gone, the deal finalized, and Lily walked away with a smug smile and a fat check. I moved into a cramped one-bedroom apartment that smelled faintly of mold and stale coffee. Every creak in the walls reminded me of what I'd lost. At night, I'd wake up expecting to hear the hum of the old ceiling fan in my childhood room, but all I heard was silence. Meanwhile, Lily was living her best life, or so her social media said. Pictures of her at brunch posing beside a brand new car, captioned "New Beginnings." The comments were full of praise. "So proud of you, Lily. You deserve it." And every time I saw her posts, something inside me twisted tighter. No one knew what she'd done. No one saw the forged papers, the manipulation, the betrayal. She was the golden child again, and I was the fool who clung to ghosts. One night, I found myself driving past the old house. The porch light was still on. Strangers had moved in, a young couple with a toddler running around the yard. I watched from my car as they laughed, completely unaware that the man sitting across the street used to know every inch of that place. My eyes stung, but I refused to cry. Not for Lily, not for them. When my phone buzzed, it was a message from Lily. "You'll thank me one day?" I threw the phone onto the passenger seat, shaking with anger. Thank her. For taking everything that meant something to me and turning it into profit? For ripping away the only connection I had left to my parents? That was the night something in me hardened. I didn't know how or when, but I promised myself I'd make her feel exactly what I felt: emptiness, loss, and regret. It's strange how pain slowly transforms into clarity. At first, I was just numb, haunted by memories and what-ifs. But over time, the sadness began to fade, replaced by a cold, quiet anger. I stopped scrolling through her photos, stopped trying to understand why she did it. Instead, I started thinking about how I could take back what she stole, not just the house, but my peace. Then, one afternoon, I ran into one of our old family friends, Mr. Dalton, who worked in real estate. We got to talking. He mentioned something that caught my attention. Lily's been looking at properties in the suburbs, trying to buy that fancy place off Willow Ridge. My heart stopped. I knew that house. Lily had been obsessed with it since we were teenagers. She used to call it her dream home. That night I couldn't sleep. I sat at my desk, the dim glow of my laptop lighting up the room, digging through every real estate listing, public record, and local forum I could find. I learned about the house, its price, its owners, everything. For the first time since losing my home, I felt purpose again. I began studying real estate law, quietly understanding how sales, ownership transfers, and pre-market offers worked. If Lily could manipulate the system once, so could I accept this time. I'd do it legally and strategically. Every late-night search, every note scribbled in my journal was fuel. One evening, I caught myself whispering aloud, "If she wants to play games with homes, fine. Let's see how she handles losing hers." That thought scared me and thrilled me at the same time. It wasn't rage driving me anymore. It was precision, revenge, but sharpened like a blade. And when I found out that her dream home was going up for a private sale soon, I knew the universe had just handed me the first move. It happened on a gray Tuesday morning. The kind of day where everything feels dull except the email in my inbox that made my pulse race. It was a real estate newsletter I'd signed up 4 weeks earlier. Buried in the listings was something that stopped me cold. Private pre-market opportunity, Willow Ridge Estate. Lily's dream house. The same one she had been bragging about for months. I read every word twice. The seller wanted a quick, clean deal. Private buyers only. My heart pounded as I realized the timing Lily hadn't closed her financing yet. If I moved fast, I could get it first. I called Mr. Dalton immediately. "Can you get me in touch with the seller today?" I asked. He hesitated. "You sure about this, Mark? That house isn't cheap." "Sure," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. I had savings, some inheritance left, and good credit. Enough to make it happen. Enough to make her choke on her own greed. Within 48 hours, I was sitting in that house, the one Lily had dreamed of for years. Sunlight spilled across the marble floors. Everything gleamed: the wide staircase, the glass walls, the panoramic view of the city. I could almost hear Lily's voice in my head, squealing with excitement, imagining herself hosting parties here. Instead, it was me standing there, signing the paperwork. I offered full price, no contingencies, and transferred the deposit immediately. The agent looked impressed. "You really must love this place," she said. I smiled. "Let's just say it feels poetic." By the end of the week, it was mine. The keys were in my pocket before Lily even realized it had been sold. When I walked out of that closing office, the air felt electric like thunder waiting to strike. I wasn't just buying a house. I was reclaiming control. And deep down, I knew Lily would find out soon enough. A week later, my phone buzzed with Lily's name flashing across the screen. I almost didn't pick up, but curiosity won. "Mark, you'll never guess," she chirped. Her voice had that familiar smug excitement. "The Willow Ridge house, it's finally mine." "Well, almost. My offer is about to go through." I bit my tongue, keeping my tone neutral. "That's so? Congratulations," she laughed. "Yeah, it's my dream coming true. I'm meeting the seller tomorrow for the final paperwork." "Can you believe it?" "Yeah," I said softly, staring at the deed with my name printed clearly on it. "I can believe it." The next day, I parked a block away from the Willow Ridge property, waiting. Her car pulled up, shiny and spotless, just like her confidence. She stepped out, heels clicking on the pavement, phone in hand as she strutted toward the front door. From where I sat, I could see her stop mid-step when the realtor came outside looking uneasy. Her smile faltered. Then she froze completely. The agent handed her a copy of the sale confirmation, my name visible at the bottom. I wish I could describe the look on her face. First confusion, then disbelief, and finally, pure panic. She called me minutes later, voice trembling. You bought it? Why would you do that to me?" I leaned back in my seat, letting the silence stretch before answering. "You wanted to move on, right?" "Thought I'd help you out." Her words came out, choked with fury. "You're sick. You did this out of spite." "Spite," I repeated, my tone calm. "No, Lily, just closure." She hung up, but the satisfaction in that silence afterward was unlike anything I'd ever felt. The same house she sold me out for had now become the symbol of her own downfall, and that was only the beginning of her. Unraveling, it didn't take long for word to spread. In our family, secrets traveled faster than light. Within days, everyone knew that I had bought Lily's dream home out from under her, and the story twisted with every retelling. Some said I'd stolen it. Others said I was finally standing up for myself. The family group chat lit up like wildfire. Lily tried to control the narrative. "He's jealous of me," she texted to everyone. He's always been bitter, but I didn't reply, not at first. Instead, I let the silence build pressure, because I knew the truth would do more damage than anything I could say. Then came the turning point. Aunt Marla called me one night, whispering like she was sharing state secrets. "Mark, I saw the documents," she said. "You're the legal buyer." "But Lily, she forged your signature on the sale of your parents' house, didn't she?" "I didn't confirm it. I didn't have to." The paperwork spoke for itself. And the evidence was already circulating, copies of the fraudulent forms Lily used to sell the house behind my back. A family friend leaked them after hearing what she'd done to me. The fallout was nuclear. Cousins who once idolized her stopped returning her calls. Our mother's best friend Hood always defended her, left a furious voicemail calling her a disgrace. Even her boyfriend dumped her, saying he didn't sign up to date someone who'd cheat her own brother. Lily's perfect image shattered overnight. Meanwhile, I stayed silent, moving into the Willow Ridge house and quietly restoring it not as a trophy, but as a reminder. For the first time, people weren't looking at me like the quiet pushover. They saw me as someone who finally drew the line, and as much as Lily hated it, she couldn't escape one truth. The brother she underestimated had just turned her own greed into her undoing. But karma wasn't finished with her yet. Months passed, and Lily's silence became louder than any argument we'd ever had. Then, out of nowhere, she called me one night. Her voice was thin-tired in a way I'd never heard before. "Mark, I need to talk to you," she said. I almost hung up, but something in her tone stopped me. When we met, she looked like a ghost of the sister I used to know. Her designer clothes couldn't hide the cracks in her facade. "Everything's gone," she said, her eyes red and swollen. "The car. Repossessed. The condos in foreclosure. My savings are drained." She swallowed hard, tears spilling down her face. "I just need a little help, Mark. Just until I get back on my feet." I stared at her, every emotion clawing inside me. The same woman who once told me to move on was now begging me to throw her a lifeline. I thought about the nights I'd cried in my car outside our old house, about the messages she'd sent telling me I'd thank her someday. "Why me?" I finally asked, my voice steady. "You had everyone else. Where are they now?" Her lip trembled. "They won't talk to me. You're all I have left." For a long moment, I said nothing. Just watched her, this fragile, broken version of the sister who once saw me as nothing more than a stepping stone. The house keys in my pocket felt heavy, almost symbolic. She whispered, "Please, Mark, let me stay at the Willow Ridge house. Even for a few weeks. I need time to think." The irony was cruel. She'd sold my childhood home without remorse. Now she wanted refuge in the one she lost to her own greed. I stood up, meeting her gaze one last time. "You made your choices, Lily," I said quietly. "Now you get to live with them." And as I walked away, I realized for the first time I didn't feel anger anymore. Just a hollow kind of peace. The day I moved fully into the Willow Ridge house, it felt surreal. The same walls that once existed only in Lily's fantasies now echoed with my footsteps. At first, it felt like winning, like I'd finally evened the score. But as the days passed, I realized it wasn't about victory anymore. It was about peace. I spent weeks transforming the space. The sterile modern decor the previous owners left behind was replaced with warmth handcrafted furniture, framed photos of Mom and Dad, and little touches of our old home. The oak swing from the front yard of our childhood house now hung from a tree in the backyard. Every change was intentional, not as a way to gloat, but to rebuild what Lily destroyed in her greed. I remember standing in the living room one evening, the sunset spilling gold through the tall glass windows. I whispered softly, "It's beautiful. Dad, you'd like it here?" The wind outside stirred gently, and for a moment, I could almost feel him there. When neighbors stopped by to welcome me, a few mentioned Lily's breakdown, the whispers of her debts, her losing streak, her moving into a cheap apartment. I just nodded politely, changing the subject. I wasn't interested in her downfall anymore. I was done letting her control my emotions. Still, sometimes I'd catch myself standing at the window, staring out into the distance, wondering if she'd ever really understand what she'd lost, not just the house, but her family, her integrity, her peace. Because the truth was simple. I didn't take her dream home to hurt her. I took it because she needed to learn that when you burn everything around you, you can't expect anyone to rebuild it for you. And that lesson was still waiting for her. It was a quiet Sunday morning when I heard the knock at the door. For a second I thought it was the delivery guy, but when I opened it, there she was. Lily. She looked smaller. Her hair was unkempt, her makeup smudged, and her eyes those once defiant. Fiery eyes were now glassy and hollow. "Mark," she said softly, voice trembling. "Please, can we talk?" I hesitated, but stepped aside. She walked in slowly, her gaze darting around the house, the marble floors, The family photos, the subtle touches of our parents' memory, I'd woven into every corner. I could see it on her face, the realization that this home wasn't a monument to revenge. It was a sanctuary, something she could never have, because she never understood what it meant to build rather than take. Her voice cracked. "You made it beautiful," she whispered, touching a framed photo of Dad. I didn't know how much this all meant to you until it was gone." I didn't respond. I just watched her waiting. Tears welled in her eyes. "I messed everything up, Mark. I thought selling the old house would help us both move on. I didn't realize I'd lose you in the process." I took a deep breath. "You didn't lose me, Lily. You sold me out." She flinched, covering her mouth as if the truth itself stung. The silence that followed was heavy like the air before a storm. "Finally," I said quietly, "you can stay for a few minutes. But after that, I need you to leave." Her lip quivered. "Do you hate me?" I looked at her and for the first time, I didn't see my sister. I saw the consequences of her choices. "No," I said, "but I can't save you anymore." When I opened the door for her to leave, she turned one last time, tears streaming down her face. "I wish I could undo it all," she whispered. "But some things, once sold, can never be bought back." After Lily left that day, the house fell silent again, but it wasn't the heavy kind of silence anymore. It was peaceful. I stood by the window, watching her car disappear down the long driveway. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel anger. I didn't feel pity either. Just acceptance. People think revenge is about destroying the person who hurt you, but it's not. Real revenge is living well when they expected you to crumble. It's healing on your own terms. I didn't need to gloat or throw her mistakes in her face. Life had already done that for me. In the months that followed, I built something new out of the ashes she left behind. The Willow Ridge house became more than property, it became a tribute. I turned one of the spare rooms into a library filled with Mom's old books. The garage held Dad's tools, neatly organized, just like he'd have wanted. On weekends, I'd sit on the back porch under the oak swing, feeling the breeze that smelled faintly of rain and earth, and I'd realize I was home again. Not the one I grew up in, but the one I earned. Lily, on the other hand, faded from everyone's lives. Last I heard, she moved out of state, trying to start over. Sometimes I wonder if she ever drives by a house that reminds her of what she lost and feels that sting of regret. Maybe she does. Maybe she doesn't, but either way, I've let it go. One evening, as the sun dipped low, painting everything gold, I whispered into the quiet, "Thanks for the lesson, Lily," because in her greed, she taught me something priceless, that peace can't be stolen. And real power doesn't come from revenge. It comes from rebuilding. And that's exactly what I did.